There's a particular kind of quiet that comes at this age. Not peaceful, exactly. More like the noise finally stops, and in that silence you start to hear things you were too busy to hear before. My name is Eleanor, Eleanor Marsh. I'm 89 years old, and I've been sitting in this chair for the better part of this morning, trying to decide whether to say any of this out loud. I decided I would. Not because I think it'll change anything for me, it won't, but because I remember being 40 and 52 and 67, and nobody around me was saying the quiet part, the real part. Everyone was moving so fast, and I moved right along with them, and I kept waiting. That's the thing I want to talk about, the waiting. Not the big, obvious waiting, waiting for the diagnosis, waiting for the phone call that changes everything. I mean the other kind, the quiet, almost invisible kind. The waiting that doesn't feel like waiting at all while you're doing it. It feels like being responsible, being realistic, being patient. It felt like wisdom. It wasn't. I grew up in a small house in Ohio. 5 kids, 1 bathroom, a father who worked at the plant and came home smelling like metal and cigarettes. My mother kept everything running. She kept everything together. She was the kind of woman who never sat down before 9 o'clock at night, and by then she was too tired to do anything but stare at the television. I watched her my whole childhood. I thought, when I grow up, I won't be that tired. And then I grew up, and I was exactly that tired, and I had children of my own, a husband named Robert, and a house that needed more than we could give it, and I became my mother in every way except I didn't even notice it happening. Robert used to say, and I can still hear the exact way he said it, low and a little dry, he'd say, "Ellie, when are we going to do that thing we keep talking about?" And I'd say, "Soon, when things settle down." Things never settle down. That's the first waiting I want to tell you about, the waiting for circumstances to be right. We had this idea, Robert and I, of renting a little cottage somewhere on the coast of Maine for 2 weeks, just the 2 of us. No particular reason, not an anniversary, not a birthday, just because we wanted to, because we were still people who wanted things. We talked about it for 11 years of soon and next summer and once the kids are older and once we've saved a little more. 11 years of that trip living only in conversation. Robert died in 2003, a Tuesday in November. Heart attack, no warning. We never went to Maine. I'm not telling you this to be sad. I'm past sad about it, I think, or past the sharp part of sad. But I want you to understand that when I say we were waiting for the right moment, I mean we genuinely believed there would be one. I mean we weren't being careless or lazy. We were being careful. We were being sensible. And the moment never came, because the moment was always now, and we kept not choosing it. There were other waitings. I waited to tell my mother I loved her in a way she could really hear, not the quick love you at the end of a phone call. I mean the real kind of telling, the sitting down kind. I had a whole speech once in my head. I was going to tell her that I understood, finally, why she was always so tired, that I didn't resent it anymore, that I thought she was remarkable, actually, when I stopped to really look at her life. She had a stroke when she was 84. She was never quite herself after that. She'd look at me, and I could see she was in there somewhere, but the window had fogged over. I never gave the speech. I held her hand a lot those last months. I hope she felt it. I believe she did. But it wasn't the same as the words, and I knew it, and she deserved the words, and I just kept thinking there would be a better time. There's a particular feeling I carry about that. I don't have a good word for it. It's not exactly guilt. It's more like incompleteness, a sentence that ends without a period. My daughter Sarah went through a very hard time in her 30s, a difficult marriage, a harder divorce. She was living about 4 hours away, and I would call her and she would say she was fine, and I would believe her because believing her was easier. I knew she wasn't fine. I could hear it in the 2 seconds of silence before she said it. I kept thinking, I'll go down there. I'll just show up. I'll make her let me in, the way mothers can sometimes do. I waited almost a year before I did it. When I finally drove down there, just showed up the way I should have done in the first months, she opened the door and she looked at me and she just crumbled, the way people crumble when they've been holding something too long and then suddenly they don't have to anymore. We sat on her kitchen floor. I'm not exaggerating, on the floor for 2 hours. That was one of the most important days of my life, and I almost didn't go. I kept waiting until I was sure she wanted me there. I kept waiting until I felt certain I wouldn't intrude. A year of her being alone because I was waiting to be sure. I think about the version of myself who went sooner. Not as a fantasy, not wishing I could go back, just I think about her sometimes, that version, the one who got in the car in month 2 instead of month 14, the one who said the thing to her mother while her mother could still hear it clearly, the one who booked the cottage in Maine and took the 2 weeks. I wonder what she felt like. I wonder if she walked a little differently, if she slept better. There's something I haven't said yet, and I want to say it carefully because I don't want it to sound like I'm making excuses. I'm not. But the waiting didn't feel like a choice most of the time. That's what I couldn't have told you at 45 or 55. I couldn't have told you because I didn't know it myself. The waiting felt like responsibility. It felt like being a grown adult who understood that life has timing and you can't just barrel through it doing everything the moment you feel like it. I thought people who acted on impulse, who booked the trip, who showed up at the door, who said the full, unedited thing they were feeling, I thought those people were a little reckless, a little naive. I was wrong about that. The recklessness wasn't in acting. The recklessness was in assuming there was always more time. That assumption, that soft, constant, never examined assumption, that was the thing that cost me. Not any single decision, not any one waiting, just the ongoing, low-grade certainty that the moment I was in was never quite the right one, that the real moment was up ahead somewhere, in better conditions, when I'd have more energy or fewer obligations, or the right words finally arranged in the right order. I had a friend named Dorothy. We'd been friends since we were 28 years old, 61 years of friendship. She moved away when we were in our 40s, and we fell into the rhythm of most long-distance friendships, the calls that get less frequent, the visits that get harder to schedule, the deep affection that gets expressed mostly in thinking about the person rather than actually reaching them. For the last 8 or 9 years of her life, I thought about Dorothy probably every other week. Something would happen, I'd hear a song, or make a particular recipe, or see someone walking with that specific Dorothy walk she had, slightly tilted forward, like she was always heading somewhere important, and I'd think about her, feel the warmth of her, intend to call. I called maybe 4 times a year. She died in 2019. After, I found myself in a strange grief, not just because she was gone, but because of all the phone calls that existed only in my intentions, all those Tuesday afternoons when I thought I should call Dorothy and then just didn't. Something came up, or I was tired, or I thought I'll do it on the weekend when I have more time to really talk. All those conversations that never happened in my head. I loved Dorothy. I want to be clear about that. I loved her the way you love someone who has known you through multiple versions of yourself, who remembers the young, frightened version and the middle-aged, confused version, and never stopped treating you like you were worth knowing. And she died with most of that love still inside me, unexpressed, assumed probably, but assumed love isn't the same as received love, and I know that now with a kind of bone-deep certainty I wish I'd had 50 years ago. My husband, Robert, I keep coming back to him. He was a patient man, genuinely patient, in a way I sometimes mistook for having no strong opinions. He did have them, he just offered them quietly and didn't push. In the last years of his life, after our children had grown and left, there was a softness between us that I've never been able to fully describe. We'd have dinner and then just sit. We'd talk about nothing particularly important, the neighbor's new dog, something we'd read, what we might do on the weekend, just ordinary throwaway conversation. I didn't know then that I was living in the best part. I kept thinking our real life was still being arranged, that something was still pending, that the house needed more work, or we needed more money saved, or there was something we were still working toward. I was in the best part, and I was looking slightly past it. What I know now, sitting here at 89 in this chair that's gotten too comfortable, is that the moments I was waiting for were most